Hello, Guardians. Welcome back to Tower Casuals, the Destiny podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Corey Deering, and alongside me, as always, is the person who needs no code name, Josh Finney.
Holy God. There is so much to get into tonight. We're just going to do it. We're just going to do it. There's no time for pleasantries.
No time. Josh, let's do it.
Oh my God. There's so much. The question is, where do we even start? I think we got to start with the 10th anniversary of Destiny. 10 years of Destiny officially happened on Monday.
It's been a good run.
Good job, everybody. It has not been a good run. It's been an incredible run. Despite all the gripes we may have had over the years, if you're still playing any game after 10 years, it's doing something right. Man, I was going to sit here and wax poetic, and then they decided to drop like 6 articles on us on Monday.
Yeah.
But yeah, 10th anniversary of Destiny. Maybe we'll dive into some of our favorite memories next year, but I feel like that was ground we covered pretty well with episode 200.
Yeah.
Not a whole lot we really need to dig into. 10 years of Destiny. There is an in-game event going on. Go do it. The chests that you have to find in the Tower of the Pale Heart are extremely easy to find. It'll take you 30 seconds. Do those, and then there will be a package waiting for you in the tower with all of those pieces of armor automatically as ornaments, so that you don't have to worry about spending transmog bucks on them.
There's awesome.
Good move. There is a new title to earn, which it wouldn't be a 10-year anniversary without some monotonous work, which they've already patched one of the things, or are going to in the very, very near future. In Skywatch, you have to go loot engrams, which you might think, oh, that's funny because it's a reference to the loot cave. Well, some of us were spending hours there waiting for engrams to drop, because only legendary engrams count, gunsmith engrams do not. And public events are not guaranteed to give you an engram anymore, apparently. So
gross.
Yeah, it was very, very frustrating. I do have it, though. I do have the legend title. Just some very, very easy things to get to. I saw some debate about this with folks getting a little upset that it was too easy to get legend as a title. I'm like, dude, it's a free 10th anniversary thing. They were never going to make this hard.
Right.
The title, I believe, is available until codename Apollo next year, which we will talk about here in just a moment. But if you want to get that sweet, sweet seal, if you want to get that pin, I guess, you want to get the pin and you want to buy the Nerf Ace of Spades, you will have to finish it before episode Echoes is over here in about 25 days. Man, I guess let's jump in and start with this 10 years of Destiny article that they did. There's a neat link in here to an ArtStation magazine article showing a lot of the art from the history of Destiny, and little blurbs from the artists who did that work. Now, granted, I would assume that the only people who are a part of this, I mean, at least when I was glancing over it, are artists who still work at Bungie, so keep that in mind. But some of them been there since the very beginning, so that's cool to see. But, Corey, we've never been ones to dwell in the past. There's new adventures on the horizon.
New adventures.
There are new adventures upon the horizon. I want to make sure that I do this in the correct order. So let's just jump right into it. Paving the way for new frontiers.
New frontiers. Let's do it. This
new
is
frontiers.
Quite the little graphic they got here, Josh.
Yeah, I want to start with this graphic. I want to start with the roadmap of what Codename Frontiers is going to be. So here you have 2 expansions, okay? You have Apollo and Behemoth, which are respectfully coming in summer 2025 and winter 2025. During that, it appears there will be one season for each expansion, so more 6-month seasons. Yay!
Yes!
Along with 4 major updates, one for each quarter, which are codenamed Arsenal, Surge, and then TBA. At first glance, so it sounds like those updates are planned to be similar in size of Into the Light, which could go one of 2 ways. I have had some time to think about this and process it and be talked off the ledge. I don't know that I really love this plan, but I'm not as pessimistic as I was.
Mm-hmm.
I think I think folks are really scared this is going to be like Trials of Osiris, Curse of Osiris, or like House of Wolves level, and I
Mm-hmm.
don't think that's the case. I personally believe it's going to fall somewhere between the kind of content we got in Warmind and what we got with Shadowkeep. Shadowkeep, obviously, on the high end of expectations. I would expect more from Warmind if you're going to label this an expansion. That's all I'm going to say.
Yeah.
I would expect the seasonal content to be on the level of something like Warmind. I would expect it to be a more fleshed out season.
Yeah.
So the things they're promising right here. The roadmap lays out our plan for year 11 and beyond. 2 expansions per year, 4 major updates of free content every year. Over the next few months, we'll be sharing more info with you on Frontiers, which is how we're describing major innovations coming to Destiny over the next few years, starting with Codename Apollo. On this graphic, it also breaks it down what you can expect in expansions, seasons, and reward passes. So the expansion looks like it is going to be, it says new stories, locations, missions, weapons, gear, raids, and dungeons. I am really hoping this means the dungeon key is gone forever.
Yeah, that would be nice, huh?
Yeah, so on optimistically, I was talking about this with Dealer and Oak the other night. Optimistically, I'm thinking you get a raid and a dungeon for Apollo and for Behemoth. Optimistically, I'm thinking it's 1 and 1.
Mm-hmm.
I would love for it to be 1 and 2, but I just don't think you have the output to do 4 dungeons a year.
Yeah, I definitely don't think
especially if you plan on getting exotic missions.
Yeah.
And that's the most important thing I think to note is if you're gonna compensate us with exotic missions that are on the level of, say, Vexcalibur or Wishkeeper, or insert classic exotic mission here,
right,
then I think that's okay. But
Mm-hmm.
I would expect at this point, my expectation, not saying this is what will happen, what I would like to see happen is I would want an exotic mission per major update. And I feel like that's 4 exotic missions that might be doable. Maybe you don't do them in the first, or maybe you don't do them with the first update because you've got the expansion. Maybe you don't do them right away. I think doing this also allows them to space content out a little bit more over that 6-month period.
Yeah.
I worry about the seasonal storytelling more than anything because it says here for seasonal updates, new and reprised activities. Reprised activities, I don't know what that means necessarily, and that I won't say worries me, but that does make me wonder a little bit. That makes me wonder kind of aloud. What do you mean by reprised activities?
Right.
New gear and artifact mods, new modifiers and challenges, new sandbox meta, new events. Cool. That's what we should expect with a season. So you're going to get that seasonal updates twice a year with the expansions. And then you're going to get and I don't now when they say seasonal update, I'm assuming that means with the seasons, and that is not going to be for every major update. It could be, it could not be. I'm not really sure. I think 6 months is a long time for an artifact to stick around.
Yeah, it seems like unless they're planning on changing how artifacts work at some point,
which I think they're toying with because they've experimented with it this episode.
Yeah,
with adding new mods every 6 weeks. Now, if you're going to do that, I would like to see us progress in mod slots as the season goes on.
Yeah.
Maybe when you drop that, hey, maybe these seasonal updates or maybe these major updates will give us new ones that are geared towards the activities or the focus for those updates. Who knows? We've got a little bit more to talk about with that stuff. And then there's a rewards pass, which I assume is going to be like the old season pass. It's going to be like the current rewards track that we have.
Yeah.
Which will include exotic weapon and ornament, legendary weapon and armor ornaments. So I like that legendary weapon ornaments are going to come back. I'm a big fan of that.
Cool.
Especially now that they sell stuff out of the pass. Granted, it takes a couple years, but if you just up to that timeline a little bit, I think it would be fine. Gear upgrade resources, cosmetics, and more. I'm not expecting the world to change here with
Right.
the rewards pass. I do like the addition of legendary weapon ornaments. Does make me excited.
Yeah.
Because I think that the pass lost a little bit of value when they took those out. We had them for like 2 seasons and it was really cool, and then they took them away. I think that would be really, really cool to bring legendary weapon ornaments back into the game, doing it that way. That's just a personal opinion. I like some of the changes they made now, where like when you get to the weapons that are in the pass, if you don't already have that pattern unlocked, that is one guaranteed red border for you. I like that approach.
Mm-hmm.
I think that is super, super important to do. I like it a lot. But man, let's dive into all of this though. Like, what does this mean on a deeper level? So the future of Destiny 2. You have this really bitchin' piece of key art here, which I like. I like the ships you see in the background.
Yeah.
I love the little guardian tent there, and what looks like dead servitors.
Yeah.
Sitting there with the guardians. I think that's kind of cool. Is that a gas tank that I see there next to the Sparrow?
Yeah, I think it looks like
Jesus
those little red
Christ.
ones that you carry around for your like lawnmower or something.
I think Tyson says something really good here. First and foremost, we all still love Destiny. It's a unique and challenging game both for you and us. I've personally been working on Destiny for 15 years and it still excites me creatively. There are not many games I could say that about. At the same time, we recognize it has become too rigid. Expansions have started to feel too formulaic and are over too quickly with little replay value. Seasons and episodes keep getting bigger, but can still feel like you are just going through the motions. Agree, and we have somebody writing in about their opinion on episodes that I can't wait to share here in a minute. We believe it's time for Destiny to change and evolve, and that our community wants this game to grow and innovate too. And to do that, we need to start breaking some of the molds. So annual expansions. Let's talk about this. Starting next year, instead of one big expansion, we're going to deliver 2 medium-sized expansions every 6 months. One every 6 months. Each of these will depart from the one-shot campaign structure we've been using essentially unchanged since Shadowkeep, and each will be an opportunity to explore exciting new formats instead. We're excited to try things that challenge your idea of what Destiny can be. We're actively prototyping non-linear campaigns.
Whoa.
Exploration experiences similar to the Dreaming City or Metroidvanias, and even more unusual formats like roguelikes and survival shooters. Each expansion will present a new opportunity to try something different. I fucking love this.
That's quite the
I'm in. That paragraph, when I got to it, that excited me in a way that things have not excited me in Destiny in a long time. This article was far from the thing that was concerning me when I read these.
Yeah.
I think we all saw how the roguelike structure could work in something like the Coil last year, right? It's no coincidence that they want to use that as a prototype for seasonal events going forward.
Yeah.
We saw it in deep dives too.
Yeah, I was going to say deep dives was probably the one that I would have pointed to first. But
yeah, I was using the Bungie given example.
No,
I do agree with deep dives though.
What I meant was like that was the first thing I thought of was deep dive.
Yeah.
Sorry,
I loved hiding the Wicked Implement mission inside of those. Even if I don't like that actual mission, I like how that was a secret to find. Mm-hmm. Similar to an episode Echoes in the exotic mission. Kind of spoiler alert, there's a time trial you can do that takes you to the Whisper of the Worm mission. You get a special emblem for it too. I can't wait to pound that out this week, and that's part of why we're not going to talk about the end of the story, because your boy hasn't done it yet. It's been a little bit of a busy week. So
gosh, even I've done it.
I'm exhausted. This has been very busy. I'm very behind. It's been a very busy week. Invoking Metroidvanias excites. Invoking a Dreaming City, it's kind of like, okay, whatever. Invoking Metroidvania really excites me. Because when I see something like the Pale Heart, and I mean to an extent the Dreaming City and the Throne World, those are examples of what destinations can and should be in Destiny. But they still feel like a first step.
Mm-hmm.
You actively saying that you're developing a non-linear campaign and Metroidvanias really excites me. Because Metroidvanias are all about exploration. Like, come back later when you have this ability unlocked. That excites me. I know that we kind of did that in The Witch Queen with Deep Sight, but I hope this is taken to a different level. That would add to the replay value that they're talking about. You know, it would add reasons for me to go back. And I think they started doing that with um, the Pale Heart a little bit. I think that the Pale Heart has a lot of exploration reasons to go back. They hid secrets in there, like the paracausal puzzles, the feathers that you could go find, dual destiny, um, and doing things of that nature, as well as post campaign quests. There were so many post campaign quests to do. And I really, really enjoy all of that. I like how the story was told in a structure too, where the raid canonically takes place before the end of the campaign. I think that's a very cool twist, and I expect us to see that implemented a bit more going forward.
Yeah, especially if they're going to try and like some non-linear stuff, like
yeah,
you know.
I like the idea of replay value, and I like what they say here. I like what Tyson says. Departing from one-shot campaigns doesn't mean we're turning away from great storytelling. Going forward, we want to return the mystery and wonder that was woven into the fabric of early Destiny, where the story felt ripe with possibilities and an epic sense of exploration and discovery. So I kind of want to jump ahead to while we're on the subject of story. I want to keep going on story since we're on this non-linear. So Alison Lewis, who is the story director, talks here, and she says the episodes we knew the episodes that followed the final shape would act as an epilogue, tying up light and dark's hanging threads, but also setting us up for what's next. The episodes close doors and open new ones, purposeful ones, storylines that are set in place to prepare us for what comes next, and what is next is our new saga. Again, really cool piece of art here with what looks like a human sea ship on an alien planet.
Yeah.
This again, like I liked the Guardian artwork above. This piece of artwork and then the one directly below it excited me more than any. The one below it kind of invoked like
Mars,
kind of like Mars and the moon. Okay, this one though really had me interested,
especially with like a ship that's like very, our time kind of looking, right? Like it just, it's more on a grand scale than like the cars that you see at the opening of like Destiny 1, right? When you wake up, like it's just this looks rad. I bet
there's a reason why we keep coming back to the cars, right? And
yeah.
Like I was just playing through one of the co-op missions the other night with Johnny and our friend Max, and the cars are there. There's a crashed plane. We're going through the divide again, and it's like it's even called that, right? And we keep evoking that imagery, and I feel the same way as you. I can't help but feel that maybe this is that for a new saga. You'll see later teases of this later in the later two episodes, and then fully kick off with Apollo. This next saga is also based around a core theme like Light and Darkness was. It will introduce plenty of new characters, factions, twists, and more. There's a lot more here we will say eventually, but we don't want to spoil the journey for you. This will be a multi-year journey. Our first expansion, codename Apollo, is a non-linear, character-driven adventure.
Awesome.
I cried. I had actual tears because holy shit. I love the gameplay of Destiny. It's one of the things that keeps you coming back. There's no game that plays like Destiny, but holy shit, the gameplay can be really monotonous at times. The story, the characters, and the lore is what keeps me engaged. I'm so excited to read this.
You know what makes me excited about this too is it finally sounds like a place for people to jump in.
Exactly. I love that you said that because we are going to touch on core playlist updates. That is another big thing that they talked about here. This story, the idea for it makes me interested. We don't know the story details, but previously in stories such as The Final Shape, you experience the story as A, B, C, D in a nice straight line. In Apollo, our story takes place over dozens of threads you'll explore and discover. So when you land on the brand new location, the story starts at A, and then you can choose if you want to explore C first, try and get into B, or maybe investigate D. And the options you didn't choose, don't worry, those other options are still open for you to go back and play through. You'll need to. because the more you play and discover, the more the story progresses. So experiencing a certain number of threads opens up the next part of the story. The order in which you explore will be something you choose, but we have built Apollo in a way the story always makes sense and flows from beginning to middle to end. There's no time gating, no waiting for the next drop. Apollo's story unfolds based on players' progression. Destiny is at its best when it's mysterious, weird, and not afraid to try new things. The shift to non-linear stories isn't something we're locking ourselves into, but it is the structure that fits Apollo best. The narrative structure of the releases that follow will be quite different, a structure to suit that game's experience, and we want to continue to innovate with each expansion across both gameplay and narrative. This all sounds like a big change, and it is, because when the rhythm of our story becomes predictable, or when characters in our world fail to change, that's how we create a situation, not a story. So how do we innovate? By telling a story that keeps up with our innovation, not one that slows it down. That means an evolving world, giving space for new characters, growing and evolving factions, remember factions, making sure the story we tell is in a world we have nurtured with characters who grow in turn. We believe in rewarding you for paying attention without punishing someone for not knowing something. That way everyone gets to come along for the ride no matter how deep in the lore they are. You'll see that approach starting with episodes and continuing into the new multi-year story. When we think about a multi-year arc, what does that look like? It's a constellation of stories united by a single theme. We will show you what that theme is later, but suffice it to say we believe in it. Think of this arc as a web, not a line. Each release fits into the larger saga, and we can't wait to take you on the journey. I will give you something to look forward to because story is easy to spoil. Apollo ends with the narrative gasoline that will propel us into the next few years with a clear theme, goal, and destination that won't come at you as a straight line, but will be well worth the trip. It will reward you, it will surprise you, and it will take us places Destiny has never seen before. All right, with all that being said, now that we have everything for the expansions out there, we'll jump back up to seasons here in a second. I'm very intrigued by this. We have heard promises like this before, though. I want to note, we have heard promises specifically from narrative that we're changing things up. We've never done this before, and sometimes that's delivered on.
Well, you know what? This, my mind, like initially, yes, that's what I was thinking too. Mm-hmm. But if you go look at some of the former narrative writers for Destiny before they got laid off,
they're all excited.
They're all still excited for this, which makes me think there's something at least a little bit new and different here. That
there were two writers, I believe. I remember who they were, but they said specifically they were working on Apollo's narrative when they got laid off.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm very interested to see how this plays out. I think Destiny is at its best when it's weird, when you explore. This is an alien universe. Like, that's why I'm always so bored when everything comes back to the fucking EDZ or the Cosmodrome. Like, no, I want to explore other planets. Like, I thought it was cool in the first game. Like, oh, we're going to Venus. Oh, we're going to Mars. Oh, we went to the moon. Like, that was fine. The Dreadnought, there's a reason why I love the Dreadnought so much. It was a truly unique place. That's why I like the dreaming.
That makes sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you, but that makes me feel like going to the Dreadnought in the last episode is like going to be meaningful a little bit.
That's how I'm feeling too. I think there's a clear purpose behind. We went to Nessus. We're going to the Tangled Shore, and we're going to the Dreadnought.
Mm-hmm.
And I think Nessus kind of represents the past in a way. Nessus was a destination that it's been long theorized was being developed to be put into a Destiny 1 expansion and ended up getting retooled in the D2, and that's part of why it's never been deleted, is because it's like woven into the code. I think Destiny is at its best when it's weird, though. Like, I liked the idea of getting to go to the Dreaming. I think the Dreaming City is awesome. I think the Throne World is awesome. Like, what the fuck does a Throne World look like? Definitely, that's not what I thought it looked like. I think the pyramid architecture was so cool to explore. The Pale Heart was not what I ever dreamed if you went into the Traveler that you would find. But the explanations have always made sense to me. I think that's why Neomuna felt so bad in a way. Like, it's a cool idea. I love the idea of a future city. I would like for that city to be populated. If I'm saving a highly advanced, human city on Neptune. And I think Neptune was a blank canvas to play with too. And, We all know how Lightfall kind of turned out, but I'm very optimistic for that. And the fact that they are hyping Apollo up almost a full year out. I would assume we're about 9-10 months away from release right now.
Yeah.
They're also not trying to move this up to meet their previous, we want to release in Q1 strategy anymore. And I think that helps them avoid some of the bigger games. If you're going to shift to this 6-month release schedule, that lets you avoid the fall rush too. That lets you put out one of these like maybe right around Christmas time and just let people enjoy it over the break.
Yeah.
I like the idea of that. I think the story is ripe for narrative abilities, and I like that they're jumping straight into non-linear. The fact that non-linear is brought up with some of the other things that they're prototyping, like like Dreaming City, Metroidvanias, and more unusual formats like roguelikes and survival shooters. Them comparing the non-linear campaigns to something like the Dreaming City or a Metroidvania really excites me. I've talked about it before. One of my all-time favorite games is Metroid Fusion, and another one I love the Castlevania series. I love Symphony of the Night. Symphony of the Night is one of the most important games I played as a kid because I loved exploring shit. That's why I love the Legend of Zelda games. I think I compare this to a Zelda game more than anything, where you have to come back with certain abilities, or like something like you just played through Ocarina of Time. You have to come back as adult Link or young Link when you have certain abilities and certain items.
Yep.
And that was something we never seen that before. Like that was so cool. I even think back to like Super Mario 64, where you had to have the winged hat for certain things, or Metal Mario or something. Like, this is something that's as old as gaming itself, and it's so cool because we don't think of stuff like that being in shooters. Right. I think that's why I liked last year I liked the idea of deep dives. I like the idea of the coil. I love the Deck of Whispers. Like, that's stuff I want to see. And if you do that in an expansion, great. That experience is always there for somebody to go back and experience if it's part of an expansion. And I think things like, especially the Deck of Whispers, I think is so cool that I love that you can go back and you can use that as part of an expansion and part of the storytelling. I think that stuff is so cool. And I love the idea of new factions. Like when they say new factions, I don't know if that's necessarily new factions for us to join. We got to get new enemy types in here, though. I'm so fucking tired of the Hive and Taken.
Yeah, you and me both.
And I mean, the Elixni and the Cabal are, if they're not on our side, they're essentially extinct.
Yeah.
So that kind of leaves like the Vex. I assume we're dealing with the Hive here real soon. We're maybe dealing with the Scorn as early as next episode.
Yeah.
And if we're going to explore new frontiers, then I do think it's time and the opportunity is ripe for us to bring in these new factions. I like the idea of that. If not, you can always bring the Hive and the Taken and stuff like that along for the ride. Just backseat them for a while.
Yeah.
Backseat them for a year or two. Like, if I didn't see them be the focus of Apollo or Behemoth, I would be so fucking happy. If this is all going to culminate in us fighting Xivu Arath, I'm going to be really upset. That's all I'm going to say. I would be monumentally disappointed if this culminated in us fighting Xivu Arath after like 3 years. Right. But I'm hopeful that this is a smaller story arc, that this will be like a 3-year story as opposed to like 10.
Yeah.
Smaller story arcs are better. You can tell a tighter, more cohesive story. We saw how they were trying to tie seasons into the narrative, and it was just really, really hard to do. I think now having 2 seasons and 2 expansions a year makes it a lot easier to drill those story beats home.
Right.
And to make them more meaningful. You avoid a season of the Undying or to my chagrin, Echoes situation.
Yeah. And as much as I like think the idea of the story in Echoes was like a good idea,
the story is fucking phenomenal.
It's very clearly suffered from like the lack of like, you know, the gameplay and there's just too many issues around it to make it feel like it's
the tire. Ronnie and I were talking about this. I'm gonna call Ronnie out a little bit, and not in a bad way. Ronnie actually made me think about this. He posted some stuff the other day that I wanted to read kind of in its totality. Let me jump to this thread real fast. Hot take: episode Echoes is very good. The content is awesome and amazing. The vehicle and how he got the content is the same old, which take players out of it. The Vex story is amazing and something like Body Horde. It hasn't been in the game, and it's dark. However, how we get that story and content takes the most out or makes it feel like a slog. I said I 100% agree. I think it's very bad. I think it's very bad. I am very, very, very tired of the seasonal model. And I think, like, as good as the story is, it doesn't feel good when like 4 of the weeks are just, oh, run and talk to failsafe, go do a lost sector, come back, and you're done.
Right.
The story, I think, got really good, especially starting at the end of Act 2. And I think that the story has actually been good in this exotic mission. I would just prefer to like see it play out on screen and not have to play the same mission 3 times. Like, I do agree. I've said I really, really love the sci-fi horror angle that we've gone for here because, again, something Destiny hasn't really done. But I do think that the vehicle in which it's been delivered has just been really bad.
Yeah.
It's been lackluster at best. And I think I was talking about this with Oak. I really would have loved for what the exotic mission ended up being. I would have loved for that to have been like maybe the 3 battlegrounds.
Mm-hmm.
And then maybe you make, well, I don't know, you do something else for the exotic mission or for the battleground or whatever. But I didn't feel like the battlegrounds were all connected, sure, but they didn't really tell a story.
Right.
And I think that's where I got really frustrated. Like, the Keitel battlegrounds are still in the game and they tell a story. You're fighting against Keitel's forces. The ones from Witch Queen are still in it. You're fighting Savathun's Lucent Hive after Savathun's been defeated, this and that. You're trying to figure out who's controlling them, and you're trying to get an up in the fight, and it ends in, Crow fucking up and things like that. And like the Defiant Battlegrounds is where I think Battlegrounds started getting a little stale. Like, okay, so you're fighting on Earth against the Witnesses' forces, but we don't understand why they're taking people captive. And this one, it's just like, oh, we went on a trip through Nessus. Like, one of these will be cool as a GM, the other 2 will just be there.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's where you got to start actively curating which of these missions get to be in the Vanguard Ops playlist personally.
Yeah.
But I really liked Ronnie's write up here. Ronnie also says, with the roadmap, I think it's a win-win only with one minor concern, and that is, can they keep getting the content out? I've seen people complain this roadmap is like Curse of Osiris to Warmind, and my only argument is during that time, there was a month-to-month content drought. This time there isn't. Will they hit their projected target dates? That's the concern. I 100% agree. I absolutely agree with that. I am actually really, really scared that they will not hit these. But with them only doing 2 seasons a year, I think that lets them put more resources in, so they're not working on 4 seasons.
Yeah, 4 seasons and 2 smaller expansions instead of 1 massive one, right? I feel like...
Yeah, well, it's 2 small expansions, 2 seasons, 4 content updates, which we don't... I'm assuming there won't be much story in those. They said they're going to be similar in scope to Into the Light. So I'm expecting like some new weapons to drop, maybe a new activity. Maybe that's when you get your exotic mission or something to drop during a season. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
But I would expect those to be dropped a few weeks into one, like maybe 5 weeks into the season, and one maybe 12 weeks in or something. That would just be like my very rough estimates of when you would get those content drops to keep people engaged. Because I don't think you can wait too long to get that first one out. I think you got to kind of get as people are getting tired at like that 5-6 week mark. But hey, if you're able to pack the season and the expansion full of content, then great. That leaves that you've got a dungeon to look forward to. Again, this is something I was so excited for with episodes that we're clearly not going to capitalize on because, surprise, the first dungeon is coming out 3 days after episode 2 launches. So, oh boy, it can really only take place after content that's either in the very first batch of the quest or after that first drop after the end of Act 1. It can technically take place. Or it's got to be completely unrelated, neither of which really thrill me. I was really hoping to see us like take Fickrel out, but doesn't seem like that one's going to happen now, and that's a little frustrating because I think that dungeons and raids should be these huge story moments. I don't think you can keep all the big story moments to the end game, obviously, but you got to do something. Like, I think that Oryx and the Witness are two very good examples of how you do that, because you were able to take them down in the campaign, but you really kill them in the raid. And the Witness was interesting. Like, you beat him in the raid, and then everyone has to come together, the power of friendship to kill him in the end. We all knew that one was going to happen. But Oryx, it's very much, you don't understand until you read the lore. You went into a strong world to kill him. You go into, you're in the Ascendant Plane killing him. So I thought that was cool. A very, very cool twist. And I understand you cannot do that every time, because then it gets old. It gets old and boring.
Yeah.
But we also should, and I think that like raids and dungeons are opportunities to explore locations that we don't normally see. I think that was I think as much as I may think Brood of Nightmares is such an easy raid, I think that is still really cool, because you went into a pyramid ship for a raid that was terraformed by the Traveler.
Yeah.
That's awesome. You infiltrate the Witness's castle in Salvation's Edge. Warlord's Ruin is basically a Dungeons and Dragons campaign.
Yeah.
Ghost of the Deep still, and I think Ghost of the Deep really embodies the idea of what they're going, that and Duality kind of embody the spirit of what they're going for with seasonal content going forward, I feel, or with expansions even, of those experiences get to live on with you. You get to experience like, oh, so we were encountering nightmares and memories of people, and so that's what we're doing in Duality, except it's Callus's memories that we're infiltrating.
Right.
With Ghost of the Deep, oh, there was this cool underwater mechanic. Like, oh, so we're doing that here. Okay. Without that content fully going away, but also like, so you don't have to slog through it. Because let's be honest, like the underwater stuff can be kind of a slog, especially in that dungeon. I think things like that are so cool. And this is why I make the argument that I don't think exotic missions should go away. And I like that they've started adding them into the rotators, because I think those are also, again, unique opportunities to keep these seasons and the themes alive.
Right.
And the locations. So I am excited. I'm optimistic. I want to get to seasons real quick. While we're talking about seasons, I really want to start closing out a couple of these tabs. I want to get the seasons real fast.
Closing out tabs.
Because we need to talk about that in the core game before we get into these other articles. Instead of 3 episodes, we are building 4 major updates per year, one every 3 months. Each expansion will launch alongside a major update at the start of a season. And then a second major update will follow 3 months after 3 months later to refresh the core game with new and reprised content, including strikes, exotic missions, or entirely new modes such as Onslaught, rewards including weapons, armor, artifact mods, exotics, and more, new weekly events, new features, combat meta, and balance updates. So, okay, it's not perfect. It's not perfectly like I thought it was going to be, but 12 weeks was still pretty on the nose. The big seasonal resets will still happen, but now twice a year alongside expansions. Each update will be a substantial refresh of the core game, bringing activities and reward content. We're also excited to announce that, like Into the Light, these updates and their content will be free to all players. We want Destiny to be easy for anyone the player recommends, so we want to remove that major barrier to the experience. So what does that mean for the core game? The core game is what is always available and the evergreen activity experience. And we need to fix 2 things with it: approachability, and that gear and challenge should matter. So I love what they say here. First, Destiny is too complex. With literally hundreds of activities, you practically need a PhD to decide what to play and how to get the rewards you're chasing. We're going to start this by modernizing our activity UI, the director, to make it easier for everyone to find and launch into activities. And we're reworking the reward model to make sure all those activities offer meaningful rewards. We'll get to those in a minute. We have 2 specific articles on activities and rewards. And gear and challenge should matter. Great activities stop mattering if the challenge dries up and the rewards aren't worth it, so we're investing in a greatly improved challenge customization system to let players of any skill range find the right challenge level for them, with rewards that improve based on the level you take on. These won't just be simple incoming damage increases either. The team is cooking up some great gameplay modifiers to give enemies some exciting tools to mix things up on every run. We will have a deep dive coming soon to show off some of these new threats. As for rewards, there will be higher tiers of the legendary gear. Think adept weapons and artifice armor that will be available from these higher challenge ranges in a much wider variety of activities across PvE and PvP. That's where I start getting nervous, because I'm not a big fan of what they talked about overall. And that's not to, throw a hissy fit, but let's get into activities really fast.
Activities.
So activities. The problem: in past releases, all attention has been on a relatively small offering of newly introduced seasonal activities, most often with a narrow range of difficulty options, if any. Rewards and objectives have focused all purposeful play into these activities to the exclusion of others. As a result, the ritual game quickly becomes stale and is exhausted of worthwhile rewards, and any further pursuit requires a deep knowledge of Destiny or online guides to find worthwhile rewards in older activities. So what's the solution? Core game activities are those accessed from the new portal screen, uh, and are a selection of several dozen new and updated activities that tie into the current seasonal theme and gameplay meta. This section is updated every major update and includes the current expansion and any running events. So on this new early mockup that we have, at the top it shows curator, quests, season pass, map, destinations, the store, and your friends list.
The store.
It will show your season rank, your season power, objectives, and then there are some buttons on the bottom: solo ops, fire team ops, pinnacle ops, crucible, insert event here. There's a tower button and there's an expansion button. This is fine. I think that this, on paper, this should be a lot easier to navigate. I initially was looking at this when I was half asleep, and I was very afraid that the actual director map was gone, which I fucking love, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
There is a whole deep dive on the portal. We might talk about the portal, we might not. I don't really want to deviate to talk about portal too much right now. It's pretty easy to understand, but yeah, I guess we'll jump into that here in a second. The challenge customization screen. This is where I was like, okay, I don't think this is great. I know this is a very early mock-up. I'm not thrilled. Oh boy.
I'm not.
All the PvE activities will now support robust challenge customization as exposed as new options alongside selecting the difficulty. So you have Advanced 3, Advanced 4, Expert 1, Expert 2, Expert 3, Master 1. You can apply, it looks like you can select your own modifiers. I don't actually know, but there are... I'm hoping that when I see the exotic and the legendary icons here with the +3s, I'm taking that to mean, and I'm sure they're going to talk about it down here, that shows how much like your pinnacle gear will be worth for your slots. And like jacking up the difficulty, they have another one right below, and so it's like your rewards are rated silver or gold or whatever. And yeah, I don't know how I feel about this. They want to make it less confusing. I feel like I need a PhD for this. This is kind of going back to the challenge customization we had towards the end of Destiny 1, though. And I like that to a degree. I don't know if this is the best thing going forward. We have been promised updates to the core playlists for like over a year now. That was supposed to come with the final, or was supposed to come before the final shape. It was supposed to come with Wish. They got pushed back to the final shape. Now it looks like it's getting pushed back a full year. I'm more than ready for updates to core playlists because I don't like. I realized I hadn't touched like Strikes, Crucible, Gambit. I hadn't touched that stuff in like a month and a half because I had challenges just stacked up for them until I was forced to do it for the Legend title. And it should never get to a point where I'm doing that. You should need or want to engage with those activities. I think if you made seasonal gear available through that a little bit easier, then I think we would all be like, yeah, we'll play a healthy mix of this. I don't have to just grind the seasonal activity. And I'm taking this to mean that is what we're doing here. So let's talk about this. This is all subject to change. The deal with challenge customization. The modifiers may introduce new enemy combatant abilities to increase threats, introduce new combat challenges to change how you play, provide incentives for changing your build craft, raise the power target for the activity, globally increasing the difficulty. You will be able to first select a base difficulty such as Expert or Grandmaster. The difficulty will set some basic difficulty tuning and a power target, but more importantly will determine how many challenge modifiers you can add on, and in some cases, which modifiers are available. Higher difficulty means more, and so on and so forth. So what does that mean for rewards? Reward rating is increased by playing an activity at a higher base difficulty, Applying challenge mods, which have individual bonuses to reward rating, having personal bonuses from sources like power, artifacts, or buffs. As a team, you will earn a team rating in an activity determined on a per activity basis. Sometimes this will resemble existing systems like Nightfall score, but new activity types can have their own way to determine team rating. This outcome is shared by all members of the fire team and will always try to mitigate competition between teammates for things like kills or specific setups. At the end of the activity, your team rating is multiplied by any personal bonuses you may have. This final multiplied value is your reward rating and the value used to determine the quality and quantity of rewards. It's used to determine things like the quality tier of the weapons and armor that drop or the quantity of consumables like prisms and shards. In this way, you can select any core game activity, use your skill and build to take on more and more challenging versions of it, earn higher and higher tier rewards. Except the Crucible. They are working on a solution, but they have nothing right now. So they want to offer PvP players a fair and complete path to high tier weapons and armor, which they should do anyways. Fascinating. We also have an FAQ. What about expansion activities, which are story missions, destination activities? The intended outcome is expansion content is always a great way to kick off a season and will have a path to high tier weapons and armor. That progress is via core game activities and will be part of the path. Raids and dungeons released still represent a pinnacle challenge for players and will have their own paths to the highest tier of weapons and armor too. Old activities are not going away, except for some seasonal activities that are normally removed at the end of the year. Older activities will remain available to launch from the destination map just as they are today. Over time, it is our intention to clean up and retire some older activity offerings that were served well by the portal, such as Vanguard Ops. These have lots of ties to existing content, though, and will need to be moved over gradually. So I hope that means I can just launch some of these strikes as is.
Yeah,
Please.
that would be
I'm begging you to take out the Cosmodrome strikes.
Oh, jeez, yeah.
I've been playing Devil's Lair for 10 years. Sepix Prime has been killed repeatedly for 10 years. It's time to move on. I also hope that this means that we're going to clean up like maybe some of the Battleground offerings and like, oh, you can like select a Battlegrounds node on like a Kaido's Battleground or something node to get one of them randomly. I think that would be a really cool way to clean it up. But hey, I don't work there. I just throw ideas out. And then matchmaking. So this is something that this was going to be something I was a little concerned about. For activities that support matchmaking like those in Fireteam Ops, matchmaking will be available for some preset difficulties, but using challenge customization to enable different challenge modifiers will disable matchmaking. Fireteam Finder may be a good way to pick up some slack here. We also intend to feature higher challenge options on a daily rotation in activities with active bonus rewards. These activities should have concentrated enough populations to ensure matchmaking can do a good job setting up good matches with solid connections. Pretty concerned about that because I understand that Destiny is a game that has been pushed for years as play with your friends. But they've also really catered to the solo crowd, I would say. Or to, those who don't have a regular group to play with. And I think, either random matchmaking and Fireteam Finder have been two really good, resources, obviously. I like that higher level Nightfalls finally got introduced to this. Taking away more options doesn't feel great. But I understand that this is going to be really difficult with new challenge modifiers and reward modifiers. I get that. I can empathize with that. I think it's just more important than ever that you find a solid group to play with. Honestly, if you're playing this game and you're not playing with friends or with a clan or a group or something like that, you should find one before Apollo.
Yeah.
Because it's going to be really hard, I think, to really enjoy the future of Destiny the way that their vision is without having people to play with. And I think that's my one and only real concern about all this. Like, I don't like the idea of how they're changing the difficulty modifiers and all this, and you can pick your own stuff. I think that's just I don't really love that. I like how it affects the rewards. I don't really love everything else about it, and maybe it's just because I'm cranky and saying get off my lawn. But also I recognize the old model couldn't stay any longer because I just said it, like Vanguard Ops are fucking useless.
Right.
Like I don't get anything of use out of those. I'm playing a Nightfall, and more than often if I'm doing a Nightfall, I'm just gonna go do the GM because I might as well get the best version of a gun. So speaking of loot, core game rewards. core game rewards.
Core game rewards.
The problem. I
Oh,
love
boy.
that they title these problems and solutions. The problem. In past seasons, only a narrow range of activities received updated rewards, leading to a narrow selection of activities worth playing. Gotcha. These reward pools tended to not be very deep either. Yup. With most chases bottoming out with weapon perk rolls or crafting recipes. Yup. And armor not mattering at all. Yup. These problems have resulted in shallow, unsatisfying grinds and a tiny subset of activities actually available to play, with their best rewards being a matter of luck rather than skill or mastery. Yup. So what's the solution? The solution is something I don't really care for at all. Weapon and armor tiers. Legendary weapons and armor will be available in a deeper range of quality tiers that layer on properties like stat bonuses, enhanced perks, and other benefits. For weapons, this will be similar to how adept weapons upgrade the baseline legendary. The baseline tier of legendary weapons and armor will be the equivalent to current day legendaries, with higher tiers being generally equivalent to adept weapons in terms of upgrade. What is the point of an adept weapon then? So here you can see there is a scout rifle titled Sortie, tier 5. Everything is enhanced on this though. Even the magazine and the barrel and all that, it's all enhanced on here. Even the origin trait is enhanced, which I'm not gonna lie, I kind of dig that, but I think this is absolutely asinine how it's described. The reward pools. Listen to this. Okay. So, reward pools are complete sets of weapons and armor that are available as rewards from one or more activities. Some weapons are shared across multiple pools, but the majority of weapons and all armor are unique to a single pool. Okay.
Cool.
A typical pool is a full armor set for each class and enough weapons to provide multiple options for each slot. Doubt it. All of these rewards are available at all tiers, so each reward pool is deep and supports a range of challenge in the activity they are associated with. The major core game reward pools will be updated in every major update and will be Core PvE, rewards shared among more accessible PvE activities like strikes. Core PvP, rewards shared among accessible PvP activities like Crucible Playlist. Pinnacle PvE, rewards shared among more intrinsically challenging PvE activities like dungeons. Pinnacle PvP, rewards shared among more intrinsically challenging PvP activities like Trials of Osiris. Every expansion also contains 2 full reward pools. Expansion Story, rewards shared among missions, exploration, or other activities in the expansion content. And Raid/Dungeon, rewards for expansion raid or dungeon activities. In addition to the above pools, some activities like events may have additional additions exclusive to that activity, such as individual weapons or armor sets.
This sounds
needlessly complicated.
This sounds overly complicated and overly ambitious for...
I'm immediately casting doubt on Pinnacle PvP and Core PvP. Immediately. I also don't understand Pinnacle PvE. So, are you like... Is that higher tier legendary weapons like that are world drops are going to be available in those, or what? Because it's like you're not going to take out the dungeon rewards. They clearly say that there. I'm also really worried about that wording there about expansion raid/dungeons, expansion raid or dungeon activities. Are we going to get one raid and one dungeon a year? That really scares me. I don't.
Mm-hmm.
I don't understand. I feel like this is just the Whirlpool, but a little bit better.
Sure.
And the Whirlpool is not good as it is. They made that also complicated this year, because most of those weapons aren't worth using, like usual. Just put the old seasonal weapons in there. God, how hard is this? New gear. Let me finish reading all this before I gripe too much.
Quote.
New gear is a blanket category for all the weapons and armor newly introduced in the current season, regardless of source. New gear will receive a special visual treatment to help players identify which weapons or armor sets are new and which may therefore benefit from things like artifact bonuses. Some bonuses which previously applied to specific perks, such as origin traits, will now be pointed towards the wider category of new gear instead. Thank God. This should provide more and clearer buildcraft options. Yes. New gear may be required in specific optional activities when players are looking for a level playing field. For example, a Crucible playlist option for players who want to play with and against the newly introduced gear. Seasonal events centered on posting high scores in seasonal activities. All right. Does new gear mean old gear is being sunset? No, not at all. Existing gear remains unchanged and ready for use in any activity except for those set aside for experimenting with new gear. It can be infused to achieve the same power as any newly introduced gear. The only specific advantage to using new gear will be some artifact synergies comparable to origin trait upgrades. You can still obtain old gear. Exclusive gear will remain available from older activities such as raids, dungeons, and destinations. And here's the big one. What's happening with weapon crafting? Because that was a question I had out of all of this. Weapon crafting is not going away and will continue to be a way to craft a specific role of a weapon. Our intent is for crafting going forward to provide a catch-up mechanism for roles you weren't able to nab from the original sources. This may be because the source is no longer available or was gated by lockouts when it was. But ultimately, we want crafting to support the weapon chase and not replace it. More details in a future article. I'm officially worried about weapon crafting. I want to put that out there. I'm officially worried about it. I like this on paper. I think this is awesome. I think that specific paragraph is awesome on paper. Using it as a catch-up mechanic is how weapon crafting should be. Mm-hmm. To let you catch up and get rolls of a weapon, but also be able to craft your own custom god roll. Like, let's be honest. Mm-hmm. But some of these chases have been really bad. The Neomuna weapons in particular are really, really rough to try and get crafted. I still don't have most of those crafted, and it's really annoying. You know? Thank God, like none of them are meta, but it's really aggravating. Or a couple Season of the Haunted weapons I just never finished.
Yeah,
so I don't have them. Also, really aggravating. And so I think that plays into the FOMO of wanting to get these. I guess when I look at how they want weapons to be upgraded in the future, it's going to be similar to the upgradable weapons, the upgradable legendaries we can do now, such as the ones in Into the Light. That's how I take this right away. To try and bring them up to eventually be on par with an adept ? I think that was their way of like soft introducing it, and I just don't really think there's like a huge benefit to it. I guess the tier thing I'm just not really grasping yet. I think that's because they need to explain that a little bit more. In a nutshell, I don't like this. I think, like we both said it, I think it's needlessly complicated to understand. Like, how is anybody supposed to know what is in those pools off the top of their head? I think is my main concern. Yeah. You say you don't want us to have a PhD for this. I feel like you need a PhD for the gear system now.
Yeah, this gear system seems.
And I am fully aware all of this is in progress. I am very, very likely making much ado about nothing. I am fully prepared to walk all this back in like 3 weeks if they publish a new article. Mm-hmm. But I got to see this in action first. I got to see some actual, and I understand they're so now after reading these articles, I now completely understand why we did not get a Vidoc or a video reveal. There's no way you could show this. They gave us some still images, which they never do, by the way. Mm-hmm. These are not even built yet.
Yeah.
This is all subject to change. I think those reward pools are absolutely subject to change.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Because I'm very just... I guess I don't understand anything past core PvE. I don't really get. Like, does this mean we're not going to have exclusive Nightfall weapons or Strike, Gambit, Crucible exclusives anymore? Are those all going to be shared amongst a pool? Like, that would make sense. Like, we're going to talk a little bit about, just very briefly, we're going to talk about Portal. But like Gambit is being shifted more towards a PvP experience, and like, yeah, so are you just going to roll the Gambit and Crucible weapons in together? Great. I would love that. I would like to get consistent drops there. You've got Iron Banner still going on. Is Iron Banner going to be considered more on the Pinnacle side of things, or what? Like, how is that all going to mesh?
Yeah.
I don't really get that, because you would have something like Iron Banner, you would have Conf, you would have Trials. You tell me you're going to give me random just weapon drops or random armor drops in something like Trials? Like,
yeah,
no, I'm playing Trials because I want specific Trials drops.
Right. They need to like really kind of.
They got to nail this down.
They got to list this out and tell us which things are going where and like what pools are going where and that kind of thing, right? So really,
yeah, and I understand like this is so far out right
sure now. Yeah, but I'm saying eventually they're going to have to do that, and if they don't do that before this all drops, like there's going to be a problem. I think
there's going to be a big problem.
The problem.
Yeah, the problem. So not the rewards is when I texted you and I says I'm somewhere between cool and oh boy. This was the oh boy. Um, all right, let's very briefly run through Portal. We have a little bit of the TWAB to get. We have a little bit of TWAB to get through tonight. We actually have a fairly good amount of questions. Um, Portal categories. Solo ops, 1 to 3 player activities requiring very low time or social commitments. These activities are designed for solo players, yet are still fun with a fire team and are easy to pick up and play for a quick session. Solo ops will also feature a new activity type, which will get a deep dive soon. Okay. So I have no idea what this is supposed to be. I have no clue what this is supposed to be. Not just a new activity, but I have no idea what this is supposed to be. Because fire team ops is what I would think of as easy to pick up activities: strikes, onslaught, the coil, and new types in the future.
Cool.
Then it gets more confusing.
Great.
Flashpoint ops, 6-player activities for match-made or pre-made groups. Planned for a future season, this category will be introduced later next year. It will feature more chaotic 6-player combative things like offensives. Okay, so that's basically an arena mode. That's a horde. That's essentially like arena or horde. I think Vex offensive or what was the one during the during season of the Splicer. Think things like that.
Yeah.
That's where I would take this from. I was gonna pull up an example from like last year, and I couldn't think of anything. The most recent thing I can really think of is reach all the way back to Season of the Lost. I think leading into Witch Queen. No. Yeah. Oh. No. Plunder had the raid the ship thing.
Yeah.
Catch Crash. That's like the last real mode like that we had, and it was received so poorly that I think that's why we stopped getting them. Also, we had like 3 seasons in a row with stuff like that. So, because also you had the big thing during Haunted in the area of the
right
Leviathan. So, then you have Pinnacle Ops, 3-player activities featuring more challenging content, including dungeons, exotic missions, and full-length onslaughts. Pinnacle Ops have an exclusive reward pool to claim, but success is not guaranteed. And then Crucible, a selection of core Crucible playlists for solo players and fire teams. Exclusive reward pools available to claim with the same depth of tier as other categories. In addition to the above categories, the portal also provides direct access to the current expansion, as well as any currently running events such as Iron Banner or Festival of the Cost. Objective streamlining. The portal will host consolidated and streamlined side objectives like bounties or seasonal challenges. That aspect of the redesign is still a work in progress, but the primary goal is to reduce the chores that need to be done before diving into an activity. Because it's bad. It's bad. John was going to jump in and do the exotic mission with me yesterday and realized that he was on step 4 of 22.
Jesus Christ.
For Act 3. So that didn't happen. I think him and Joe are catching up right now. Bonus rewards. Every day, several activities in each category will have bonus rewards added to the standard offering. They will look like something like specific weapons, specific armor slots, currencies such as enhancement materials, or strange coins. The bonus reward is guaranteed from the first daily clear and available at a high drop rate on future clears. Activities with bonus rewards will be sorted at the top and easy to find, so you can quickly scan what's available and decide if any are worth chasing. For matchmade activities, it will also offer matchmaking in a wider range of difficulty options. Okay, that I'm not gonna lie, that is a good idea. That is the kind of thing that should have been included in rewards. I actually really like the idea of that for specific armor and specific weapons in particular, because we have all found like that one elusive weapon that we need from the world loot pool, and we spend months trying to get it. And by the time we get it, Funnel Web immediately comes to mind for me a couple of years ago. And by the time you get it, it's been nerfed into the ground. I like this idea. I like this approach. The more recent one that I had was Crux Termination, trying to get one of those for Pantheon. And I just became the galley bitch. I like the idea of this, though. You're guaranteed it from the first daily clear and available at a high drop rate on future clears, because who among us has not struggled to get that pinnacle piece of armor for the final slot that we need to get to the max power? Who among us hasn't? John spent 3 weeks chasing a butt flap this expansion. 3-4 weeks just trying to get a level 2000 butt towel. That's not hyperbole either. I spent 2 weeks trying to get legs.
Yeah.
You know, because luck of the draw makes it feel bad. This being more streamlined does make me happy. I like this approach. Again, this latest out in rewards. We've already talked about activities going away. What about Gambit? Gambit will remain available from the destination map, but will not be rolled into portal categories at the start of the year. We're still figuring out our plan for this beloved, infamous game mode. And cool. We have some ideas ranging from closer integration in the Crucible category to standalone events that feature it. I'm telling you, Trials of the Nine, bring it back, make it a Gambit Prime event. Do it. Just do it, especially now that we can all get the Gambit Prime armor. Just do it. Will raids and dungeons be in the portal? Dungeon content will be featured in the Pinnacle Ops category with some alterations to support challenge, customization, and reward rating. Love that, by the way. Really love that we can finally get Pinnacle weapons, seemingly, from dungeons. Big fan. Because there's really no incentive to go do this shit on Master. Let's be honest. Outside of Artifice armor, there really has never been a point to doing these on Master.
Mm-hmm.
You get one run out, and once you have a good set of Artifice armor, there's no point, especially now with not having to have a set of armor for every element. Raid content will not initially be present in portal categories. The long clear times combined with the wide variation in experiences present some unique challenges we are still working through. However, we are excited to get this content in the portal in the future. Man, just leave it out.
Right.
Just leave it out, honestly. I think it's a terrible idea. I only support it being in portal because if you're in a 6-man team, it's probably so much easier to just pull up a list of the raids that are currently in the game. When you have your fire team, select it and launch it.
Yeah.
Let everybody preview what rewards are in there, this and that. Now, if we get to a point where we can customize the rewards, I understand the idea of the reward customization. I just don't know if I love the implementation of it. And I think that the categories in particular are very confusing. But if you can let me, I don't know, not guarantee, but like weight my drop towards specific weapons in a raid or a dungeon, I would really love that. Kind of like we got with attuning to weapons during Into the Light. I think that could be a really, really interesting tactic here. I also like what they did with the Salvation's Edge raid. When you clear it, you get a key, and if you go do Excision, you get another red border out of it.
Yeah.
I really, really like that approach, and I want to see more content take approaches like that to encourage me to then go into core playlists. Even give me a key that, like, oh, when you have this key in your possession, you from like a dungeon or something, you can hold one at a time. You have a chance the next time you play any core playlist activity or any seasonal activity, you have like a 10% chance for a red border to drop or for a tier 5 weapon to drop or something if you did it on Master. Stuff like that, I think, is how you could innovate the offerings and get people playing in those core playlists. We need love given to the core game, though. The thing that irks me the most out of this, we have gone through 5 articles now about the future of Destiny. Where are the Crucible maps and the Crucible modes?
Right.
What is the plan for Trials? What is the plan for Iron Banner going forward? We need to know these things. And I understand that fixing something like Trials or Iron Banner can technically be done on the fly. But that is something you will have to take months to fix.
Right.
We know we're still dealing with the special ammo controversy in Crucible. They made it something we all liked, then they took it all away because the implementation was bad. And now everybody's back to hating it. And I'll tell you something. I have played one of these new maps. I've only seen one time, I swear to God. And it was the one time I got it in that specific new map playlist. I swear to God, that's the only time I've ever played Eventide Ruins. I've played Cirrus Plaza a couple of times. It showed up in the last Iron Banner for me, I believe. And I have seen Dissonance more than a few times. I think I've actually seen that for Momentum Control. Either saw it for Momentum or I was just seeing it in like normal ass Iron Banner the last time it was up. But I have seen Dissonance at least a few times. God, just talk about massively frustrating though. Like
Yeah.
3 new maps, haven't gotten them. We had to beg and plead for them. Joe had to announce them, and supposedly the team didn't even know he was going to announce it when he did.
Right.
And they had a screen. And I know now we have less people. I want to know what the plan is for Crucible going forward. We know that at one point Crucible was going to be spun out. I think that's why they stopped developing on it. And we know so many other people have gone to Marathon. They're putting all the eggs in the Marathon basket. The stuff they've laid out here does give me hope, but I have a lot of reservations when it comes to that reward system and the fact that PvP is not talked about at all. I am not going to pretend to be the biggest fan of Destiny Crucible, but PvP in a game like this is what is going to keep your audience engaged in between the big content drops. Now, with you having 2 smaller expansions, each with a season, and 4 major updates, basically an update every 3 months, I do think that keeps people engaged a little bit better. I think that's going to keep the PvE crowd engaged pretty good. We need to see what the dedicated reward pools look like for PvP. That is a start, at least. I need to know. It should not be controversial for me to say that with each major release, and I'm saying for a major release, it's not the Into the Light updates. I'm saying, when I say major release, I'm saying Apollo and Behemoth.
Mm-hmm.
There needs to be a map. You need to have a map with each one.
Mm-hmm.
That is not, I do not think that is a hard ask for a multiplayer map every 6 months.
No.
I do not think that is a hard ask. I do not think it's controversial. I think that you need to have new modes in there. I would like to see Fortress be put into the normal rotation. I understand that people don't like playing objectives, but Destiny 2 Crucible is so inherently built around objective-based gameplay that you kind of have to. And I think they've made some good strides. I like the idea of Sparrow Control. 8v8 Sparrow Control is kind of wild.
Mm-hmm.
I like the idea of that. I want to know what the long-term plan is for Trials. Like Trials now, granted, part of this is because the population of the game is so low right now. Trials had a lower population this past weekend than Trials of the Nine's final weekend did. That's kind of the state we're in. And I also just don't think that the weapon drop is phenomenal. The 2 burst. Haven't heard a lot of people talk about it. Shayura's is back again. If you didn't get a good Shayura's before, here you go. I think there's a couple new perks on it. Tired and True Weapon, but a lot of us have a good Shayura's at this point after a couple years. There comes a point where things have to be done. I want to know, when are we going to see updates to, when are we going to see updates to Nightfall weapons that are in rotation, or the weapon for competitive Crucible or Gambit or whatever. Are we going to get those every 4 months, or are those every 6 months now? Because if you do that, that's even less loot to earn, right? You got to make world loot mean something at that point.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. A lot of this is just me kind of talking out loud and just kind of spitballing, but it is a frustrating place to be, I think, as a player. These changes, I think, are ultimately really great for those of us who already are hardcore into the game. The people who are definitely more on the pro casual side and this is your main game, or this is all you play. Bife, I think, made a really good point that I think a lot of folks are kind of overlooking, and that's what is the new player experience supposed to be like? How am I supposed to sell somebody on this? Because we know that Destiny's having a really hard time bringing in new players. And guess what? A lot of the old guard, we're kind of getting tired after 10 years. If we start leaving, who is there to play? Because this game is really hard to get new people to come in and play because it's so complex, or to get people to come in and play more than just the expansion. Our friend Ray only plays the expansions and occasionally will play a little bit of seasonal story because it's just so much to catch up on every single time he comes in. He hasn't done any of the raids in D2 or any of the dungeons just because he doesn't have the gear or the time to grind the gear.
Right.
And I think that's the biggest thing is we're all hitting, those of us who have been playing since the beginning are I would say, who have been playing for 10 years are probably at youngest, late 20s probably. Mm-hmm. The average player is probably late 20s, early 30s, like myself, who started playing this back when. I mean, dude, I was 22 when this came out.
Yeah. I mean,
and I've been playing it for 10 years now.
I mean, this came out I was barely dating my wife at the time.
Destiny 1 came out the third week of my final year of college.
Yeah.
And here we are now. But like almost everybody I played with at that point is married, has kids, has like 2 or 3 kids, just does not have the time to play this game anymore. They still love the lore, they love the story, they love the characters, and like a few of my friends just they keep up by watching cinematics or watching Dado play the campaign or whatever, but because they're like, oh, I can't be bothered to get into it anymore, but I still think the raids are so cool. Like I watch the raid race on Twitch when it happens and stuff like that, and I think that's all so cool. It's so frustrating at times.
Yeah.
So I think overall broad view of Frontiers, I think this is a decent first pass. The content map does leave some concerns, like Ronnie raised, about can you meet those goals? Can you meet those content delivery goals? I don't really love the rewards explanation. I don't think that's great. I think that the fact that like tuning your rewards or your challenge can disable matchmaking is really frustrating to me. Like you're going to have, and I know they're saying they're going to do this, but there's obviously going to be restrictions to doing it match made as opposed to doing it with your own pre-made team. And I hope Fire Team Finder usage goes up, Xbox LFG, whatever you want, whatever format you use. I hope that it skyrockets with this, and you can find your own teams to do this if you don't have dedicated friends or discords that you're in, and this and that. I just solo ops have no idea what that's supposed to mean. No fucking clue. I think the portal is a great idea in concept. I need to see it actually executed. Portal is either going to be something that is awesome or it's going to be something they walk back within 6 months. There's no in between.
Yeah.
So they're promising regular updates like this. I would expect an article maybe once a month for the rest of this year and then really ramp it up after maybe New Year's or Valentine's Day next year. But I'm feeling, with the new content delivery, I'm feeling pretty damn good about our decision to go to every other week. Because let me tell you, if you're only going to get one expansion in one season, really hard as a content creator.
Yeah.
That's not, oh, woe is me, but man, it's going to get real rough towards the end of those. That's the conversation for next year. Right now, still liking the rollout, but I'm glad they recognized right off the bat 18-week episodes was not the way to go.
Yeah.
This episode was sustained because you had the final shape drop and you had content from that still coming out for a few weeks after.
Yeah.
That was fine. That helped soften the blow of how lackluster Act 1 was. Also, I think Breach Executable is just I think that's a fun activity, personally.
Yeah.
It had an expert mode. I was thrilled. Battlegrounds, obviously, we all know how I feel about Battlegrounds at this point, and we all know how I feel about the exotic mission overall. Overall, just been, again, Ronnie nailed it. The story's been really great. The vehicle has been terrible, as far as I'm concerned. So I hope Revenant can pick that up. Obviously, Revenant is also going to be aided by having both Festival of the Lost and the Dawning going on during it. That will help with some of those. Them not doing 2 weeks straight of Iron Banner going forward is also going to help. Promising to deliver it 4 times an episode is good. That's a good start. I think 1 week a month just should be Iron Banner starting next year.
Yep.
1 week a month. And I understand why they wanted to do the 2 weeks, because then that gives you 8 straight weeks of uninterrupted trials. We're at a point, just put trials out there. Just let trials run at the same time. Who fucking cares? It probably would make for a better Iron Banner experience for everybody if you honestly did that. I'm not even going to lie. So, yeah. It might even make for a better Trials experience. Who knows? Because then people are logged in playing PvP and they're like, oh, hey, maybe I'll go check out some Trials too.
Yeah.
But that's me spitballing. I don't know. Any final thoughts on this before we hop on over to a very quick TWAB and some viewer questions?
I mean, my only thought remains is that this seems highly ambitious and highly I don't even know what word to use except for it seems lofty and ambitious, and I hope
with 40% less staff.
Yeah, that's what I mean too, is like and a lot of their staff working on another game as well. So
yes,
for the love of this game, I hope that they pull out this. I hope they pull this out. Right.
I do too.
I really hope they pull this out and they adjust where they need to, and kick non-prioritized things down the road so they can get the things that they should prioritize right.
And I'm hoping only having to focus on 2 seasons
mm-hmm.
is going to help that seasonal team be freed up too.
Yeah, and maybe that'll like give the Crucible Strike team something to kind of hone their skills on.
Oh my god, we got to get some love to these core activities.
Yeah,
I know that's part of the goal here, but Jesus.
Yeah. So, Bungie developers, pulling for you. Really am. I really, really am. I hope that this is. I just hope everybody's not biting off more than they can chew because of all the loss of staff in 2 games and
Pete Parsons of it all.
Yeah. I don't want to mention that name in case any of the developers are listening, because I know they probably just cringe every time. I hear a cat meow.
It's my cat is very upset. The door was closed and he got in and he's like, "How dare you close the door on me, human?"
That's okay.
And now he won't make his mind up if he wants to be in here or leave. My partner has been asleep all afternoon, so she had a CT scan and it took a lot out of her. So
yeah.
Do it. All right. So just jumping over to the TWAB real fast, there's not a lot here. It's just kind of a recap of everything we talked about. The new dungeon will launch on October 11th, though. October 8th is when Revenant launches. Tons of new details to share with you before that time. The new dungeon will launch Friday, October 11th at 10 a.m. Pacific time, and it will feature a new contest mode for the very first time.
Ooh.
So I'm very interested in contest mode being a thing. Mm-hmm. Ronnie writes in.
Ronnie?
About this. I've said this since Duality about day 1 dungeons, but I believe that contest mode was turned on for the first 24 hours without them telling us. The TWAB announcing this new one will have I'm calling it contest. I'm not calling it contest mode solidifies it for me. What say you two? I don't think that the other ones had it. I really just haven't super struggled with them, to be honest with you. I think Duality was a little complicated until we figured out a damage pattern, and then it was perfectly fine. But the other ones, I didn't feel that at all. I felt like the health was too high on certain opponents, but I didn't think it was too bad overall. Especially Warlords. I felt like Warlords was the right amount of challenge for a day 1 dungeon, I think. It's always important to remember that we are more powerful than when those dungeons came out. We do have access to, transcendence and things like that now, which I really like. Like our weapons have gotten better. I'm not super afraid of this. I think this is fine. I think it's totally fine. Also, Icebreaker is coming back with this dungeon. Forgot to mention that tidbit earlier.
Yeah, I saw that. I was like, that's a little interesting.
Yeah, I told Saint that I owe him an apology because I vehemently said no a couple weeks ago that was ever going to happen.
Yeah, I mean, we had a whole conversation about it. Like, how can Icebreaker even come back in this version of Destiny, right? And
also, it should be noted in the 10th anniversary key art, the Titan front and center is holding Icebreaker. Yeah. So,
yeah,
I thought that was very, very cool. So something else I wanted to touch on this that I completely forgot to overlook because it's such a small paragraph. This also ties into a bit of a question that was being discussed in the Discord earlier today about were we going to get any news on more 10th anniversary celebration stuff? Both the armor sets and the legend title are the first of the 10th anniversary tributes to Destiny, but there are more coming in the future. As you may have already guessed, thanks to our key art, a certain exotic sniper rifle, once considered a myth by many at this point, is resurfacing in the upcoming dungeon. We'll share more info at a later date, but we hope this helped break the ice. I do wonder what else they're going to do for the 10th anniversary. Like, is it going to be like they're going to drop things in periodically for the whole year or what? Because we've talked about it enough to where I don't want to talk about it anymore, but Yeah, little underwhelmed by the fact that it was an armor set, and I understand it was from some of the earliest concept art, but god damn, that hunter set is bad. I love the Warlock and Titan armors, but I really hate the hunter set. I would hope that there's more armor, but I did appreciate though, regardless, you get you get them automatically as ornaments after you open up all 5 chests. That was very nice. Please do more of that in the future, Bungie. I understand you can't do it for everything, but I do think for certain things, like Solstice, for instance, that should be a thing.
Yeah.
Just my 2 cents.
Yep.
TWAB. Did we have anything else on the TWAB to go over? It's the Bungie Foundation is going to be at TwitchCon next weekend. If anyone is going to TwitchCon, send me a DM on Discord or on Twitter and let me know, because I really, really, really want one of these emblems very badly. One of my best friends works for Twitch. He is not going to TwitchCon because his wife is about to have a baby. So I would really like this emblem.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. Bye. I think this emblem is fucking rad. Magneto Sonic Waves. I think this looks awesome.
Yeah,
it is the one and only chance to grab this limited time emblem IRL. So be able to track us and say hi while you're there. This is really cool. I like it.
Yeah, it's super cool.
Big fan. Might need to like beg some people to get me one. AKA if you step into my DMs, I'm gonna beg you.
I'll reach out. I know some people that are going to TwitchCon. I'll reach out to them and see if they're.
Oh, God bless. I really want one of those.
Yep.
I think that's literally about it. Yeah, that's all that is. That's all that's in here right now. So, we're gonna jump to questions. I did not prepare a lore corner with everything that we had to go over. This week.
We're an hour and a half in, and we look at all the freaking.
I have drank 32 ounces of water during this show, and my throat is still dry. So, all right, we have a couple of questions that I want to get to. First of all, Jiggly Panda asks, what are your thoughts on Icebreaker coming back? Shocked.
Yeah, I'm a little shocked too, but are we though? Because they just keep bringing back Destiny 1 weapons a little bit.
That one in particular, I'm shocked because it broke Destiny 1.
Yeah, but this is
PvP in particular.
Yeah, but this wouldn't be the first time they changed perks or adjusted.
I understand, and that's my only caveat is they're going to have to change it, which inevitably means people are going to get really upset about this.
Yeah.
I'm going to withhold my full verdict on it coming back until I actually get to play with it.
Yeah.
Until it's in the wild. So October 11th or 12th, when I review the dungeon. You can tune in then. Jigo Panda also says, a lot of times in the Destiny community, we've said a lot of things will never come back, or we'll never do certain things. With things like classic raids or exotics, people have said we'll never get back. What are some things you may have at one point said will never happen or come back? For me, it was Icebreaker and going inside the Traveler. I think that's the biggest two for me. I swore up and down we were never, ever going to get Icebreaker back, and that going into the Traveler was just a myth, because all we'd ever heard of going into the Traveler was fucking Fenchurch. And I just assumed that Fenchurch tells tall tales. Those are the two pretty obvious ones for me too, I think.
Yeah.
I also very famously thought that Crota's End would never come back as a raid.
Yeah.
I was in the camp of Team Dungeon on that one, and I'm so happy I was wrong, because I think New Crota's End is very well done.
Yeah.
What other things? Getting a full-on 12-man activity. That's a big one.
Yeah, that's
getting a real 12-man activity and it actually worked right away was a big deal.
Yeah.
I did not think that was going to happen.
It was cool too. It was awesome.
Stardust writes in, I believe for the very first time ever. Thank you for writing into the show.
Stardust.
Non-linear, character-driven adventures sounds like non-time gated content drops. What are y'all thoughts on this? Do you think it will lead to bigger content droughts for full-time players, or overwhelming to super casuals such as myself? I think you nailed it there. I I think that in a way you are going to have bigger content drops
Mm-hmm.
because the season is supposed to drop at the exact same time as the expansion, and both of those are supposed to be a 6-month window.
Mm-hmm.
I think dropping things like Into the Light size, the little nuggets are fine, but I think we all kind of got tired of Onslaught after a couple weeks because it was like seasonal activities.
Mm-hmm.
So I want to know how they're going to keep this fresh. The non-linear storytelling, I think they actually laid out very clearly. I think that it's going to actually be great for casual players because you can kind of play through it at your own pace.
Yeah.
I think for the hardcore fans, they are going to run out of content. I need to see what other content is going to be in here and how long is a non-linear story that you want to tell in something like Apollo Behemoth.
Right.
So these are smaller expansions. I'm not expecting a giant story, but yet they're saying this is non-linear and it's going to kick off the next couple of years of Destiny storytelling in a big way and this and that. Like, man, just don't write checks that your narrative team has to cash.
Right.
Or that your activity designers have to cash. I'm not downplaying those, but I'm being very cautious with this. I personally do not think there is enough content. I think that is going to be really rough for 6 months. We've seen how 6-month seasons go in the past. I think you might keep engagement up for like 2.5 months, and then I think it's going to go off a proverbial cliff.
Mm-hmm.
Like you're going to have a really, really hard time doing that because what are you going to do? Tell a story that lasts 6 months in a season? Fuck no, you're not going to do that.
Right.
You'll be lucky to make it like 3 months.
Right.
So I'm very skeptical about how that's going to go. And then like, well, are you going to give us a raid and a dungeon for each of these?
Right.
Like, how's that going to work? Because I'm hoping that we get a raid in a dungeon, and if you do, like, hey, maybe the dungeon comes with that 3-month mark,
mm-hmm.
And that would open new possibilities for that. Maybe dungeons can be like the conclusions to the seasonal story or something like that. I think that'd be a cool way to keep the seasons alive. But I think I'm dreaming a little too big there.
Yeah. No,
we need clarification on the end game sooner rather than later on what we can expect, and we even need it for this year because we still haven't gotten a second raid this year.
Yeah,
I would assume at this point we are still getting a second raid. I think it's going to come out closer to Christmas though.
Yeah, I would imagine.
My guess would be that week after Thanksgiving would be the sweet spot to release it, because then you get a world's first out of the way before people go on vacation. You get a world's first out of the way before the Game Awards happens, where I'm pretty certain Game Awards is where we'll see maybe the first trailer for Apollo and the real name for it.
Yeah.
It'll be about 6 months out.
Mm-hmm.
They love to show up there. They have several times in the past.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they're there.
Yeah.
Can't really think of another place they would be at. They're not gonna drop a trailer in 10 days or whatever it is when the state of play happens.
Right. Especially
that's not going to happen. You have a better chance of a marathon trailer showing up, which is 0, by the way.
Yeah. I think the Game Award makes sense too, just because if you're not going to have people on camera right now, which apparently they're not doing at the moment.
Honestly, smart move, because that Twitch chat would be the most toxic thing I've ever seen.
Yeah. You're going to want to, the next thing you show is in a real way is going to, you're going to want to do it big, right? And that's the Game Awards is going to have the most eyes on it. So
yeah, I think that is where you probably see Apollo and you maybe see Destiny Rising.
Oh yeah, I forgot the mobile game.
Yeah. That would be where I would estimate you see those. Maybe they decided to do a showcase in January at the top of the year to actually show some stuff off. Because I'm a pretty firm believer when they show it can't just be a story trailer. It's also got to actively like show some of the things that they've been working on, like more final builds.
Yeah.
But we can't go all the way up until like March or April, like we did this year with the final shape, not really knowing anything until 2 months out.
Yeah.
You can't do that. But also, I don't think I think they're being smart. Like we got the final shape tease 13 months before it came out. We knew about Cade coming back 13 months out.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine if that had just been a surprise at the end of Wish.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like 2 weeks before the final shape comes out, all of a sudden Cade's back.
Yeah. I mean, I still think that reveal was made because Lightfall didn't hit how people
100%.
wanted, and they needed people to
100%.
get excited.
I think that, and I think it was a Sony mandate.
Mm-hmm.
We've also both held the opinion since the day they showed it that the marathon reveal was like that too. So we'll see when they do all that. I know that deviated from Stardust's question, but wanted to get there. One more Destiny question from Tiger Jesus. Do you guys expect the future raids to be shorter and less difficult in this new era of Destiny?
No.
Between Root of Nightmares and Salvation's Edge, what's the sweet spot the raids should be hitting? I'll let Corey go first.
So I have opinions on this, but most of them are going to start with Apollo. So if you're gonna, my opinion is whatever the next raid is going to be. It's definitely not going to be a Salvation's Edge raid, hard raid, right? It's going to be probably towards the mid, medium difficulty, if you're going to rank it that way, right? But I think starting with Apollo, there's going to be a lot of people jumping in for the first time, I think, because that very clearly seems like a great jumping on point for people. And so I think that first raid out of the gate, you're going to want to make it a little bit easier, just so people who maybe have never done a Destiny raid, or it's been a while since they've even played the game, like you're going to want to get them used to how raid mechanics work and all that, which I think the Final Shape actually did a great job of introducing mechanics throughout the campaign to, then use in the raid. But I still think that you're going to have to introduce an easier raid for people to dive into, to kind of learn how raids work and everything. Again, you're going to have to reintroduce this stuff to people, or introduce it, because, this is kind of the, hey, come on in, enough time has passed. Seems like we're going new places, and that's my opinion, at least.
I think you nailed it earlier in the episode when you said this seems to be a great jumping on point for new players, like thematically.
Yeah, I
agree, and I think that's part of why I'm so frustrated with how like rewards are being laid out in this article. I think it would be better to just show us that. And you're gonna have to make it publishable and very accessible what is available in each pool, I think, if you're gonna update that regularly. But that's beside the point. With the raids, I think the sweet spot is I tend to think that it's also going to be on the easier side. They can't make it too easy because they want to keep those veteran players invested. But I think something that has the challenge of a day one, like Crota did, like the new Crota's ended, where so few people were completing it because they got held up on a DPS check, or they were getting held up at Eryute or at Crota himself, and then let alone trying to go through it in challenge mode. I think that's actually probably the sweet spot, because it lets everybody can kind of get through that first encounter, probably through the second encounter if you can just stay alive, and then then the difficulty kind of jumps because you're at a DPS check. It all depends on how the raid is laid out, but if it follows the typical like, encounter, mini boss, encounter, boss structure, then, and I do think this will be a 4-act raid. I do not think we're going to get another 5-act raid like Salvation's Edge for quite a while. It's worth remembering we only got 5 encounters because of the delay. Verity was not going to be in it, and that's part of why I think we all love Salvation so much, is the Verity encounter.
Right.
That raid is not what it is without that. I would say I think somewhere along the lines of Crota's End. I don't think it's going to be too much more difficult than that, honestly. I do think that's kind of the sweet spot for new and veteran players. Have an encounter that's like exploration based at some point, have 2 kind of puzzle encounters, quick combat encounter maybe at the end of one of those, and then have the boss. I think that's kind of what you're looking at. I don't expect them to get too easy, because I think they've seen, like with Ron, you can't go too easy. Ron, I've praised Ron because I love it so much, but that's not a raid you put in when you're a year out from the finale. That's a raid you put in at the beginning of the saga.
Yeah.
Or in like Shadowkeep or something like that. Like, so I wouldn't be shocked if this was an easier raid. I think Crota's End or Deepstone Crypt is kind of the difficulty you're looking at here for a day one. Something that like, it may be challenging on contest, and maybe it's challenging for like that first clear or 2, and then boom, you're running it in your sleep.
Yeah.
That's probably what you're going to be looking at here, honestly. Hate to say that to my hardcore raid fans. You're probably going to be waiting till Behemoth for something bigger and better. What I want to know is, where do reprised raids fit in with all this? That's kind of the question I want to turn on everybody else, because we've lost so many raids. I want to see some of those put back in this game with improved loot pools and things like that, because I still think there's a place for something like Crown of Sorrow in this. I think there is still a place for the Leviathan. I think if you updated dogs, especially, that could be just a fascinating raid in this sandbox. I've said for a very long time how badly I want Wrath of the Machine.
Oh yeah,
my Wrath of the Machine dreams are dying, but I would really love to see Wrath of the Machine come to D2.
Yeah, I would love
that's
it too.
That's the hill I'm dying on. Is that's the thing I really want in this game. But yeah, I think you're going to probably skew towards the easier side of things personally. And we have one I want to make sure that I got everything. Make sure I got all of Ronnie's comments. I think we read a lot of his questions during the episode. I want to. So Jiggly Panda asked us a non-Destiny question, and so I want to save it for the end because we're going to talk about this a lot more on Xbox Casuals. We have talked about this there. Thoughts on the new Game Pass tier that just got announced? I personally think it's a ripoff, but what are y'all's thoughts? We've both gone on record as saying we think this is asinine.
Yeah.
Raising it to $20 now, personally, and I hate that the day one games are being moved to the $20 tier. I really hate that because I think that makes it a lot harder to get indie devs to agree to sign on. I think that
well, is it day one? Is it only day one first party games, or is it all day one games?
It's all day one games, is my understanding.
Man,
there will be certain exceptions.
Man, I thought it was only first party games.
I thought it was too, and they've been really unclear about it.
Oh, shocker.
And I think they're intentionally being unclear because Stalker 2 is 100% going to be in that higher tier.
Yeah.
Even though it was announced for the previous one, $20. I've long said $20 is about the most I'm willing to pay for this because I'm still getting value. I play a lot of my indies on Xbox because a lot of the indies I'm interested in, surprise, come to Game Pass, and that's because they have the Microsoft marketing behind them. So their interface is a lot more. Yeah. PS Plus has started picking up a little bit this year. Animal Well and what was the other one? Tales of Zao, I think.
Tales of Kentara Zao, right? That was it.
There was one other one that came out earlier in the year from the voice actor of Bylek.
Yeah, that was Tales of Kentara Zao.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I just thought it was Tales of Zao. Got it. Both of those were day one releases. Plucky Squire is going to be one.
I can't wait for that game, man.
Yeah, I mean they're finally getting some day one games on the service, and they're nailing it with the ones that they're picking for indies. I've long said that I don't think that sub is worth the money, and if I'm gonna keep that energy, if I'm gonna have that energy, I gotta keep it here too.
Yeah,
I don't think it's worth it. Paying for online console gameplay in 2024 is a fucking ripoff. I do think that Game Pass still has its purpose, and I mean, let's be real. The real reason that they're introducing this new tier is because of one game, and it's Call of Duty. If they don't make the Activision purchase, yeah, the price probably goes up at some point, but I think it's fucking wild that they're doing a price increase before the 2025 slate is hitting with games. Because theoretically, in the next 16 months, you have, well, I'm going to go ahead and count this month. You had Age of Mythology this month. You're getting Towerborn is in early access now. I don't know if that's on Game Pass yet, though. That might just be Steam early access.
Yeah,
you're getting
your touted Xbox Game Pass game is Steam early access first,
which I'm like low key kind of okay with because it's a small studio, but that's neither here nor there. You're getting oh god, what's Aura? You're getting Aura, which is another 4X game. You're getting Call of Duty Black Ops 6. Black Ops 6, man. You're getting Indiana Jones and the Great Circle, which we're both really stoked about. One of my most anticipated the rest of the year.
Yep.
And then in the first probably 8 months next year, you are getting Avowed, South of Midnight, Doom the Dark Ages. You're getting Fable. I would wager to say that I think Gears of War E-Day is a fall game next year. And I'm personally in the camp that thinks that Perfect Dark is the holiday game. And you're going to get something Call of Duty related. Like, now, if you wanted to up the price on me after giving me that slate and assume that 3/4 of those are critical successes, I'd be okay with it. I would rather see them drop fucking EA Play and maybe be able to cut the price back down. I really thought
Yeah.
they were going to walk this shit back after it leaked.
Yeah, I'm shocked
And
that
they
EA
didn't.
Play is still on there, to be
I'm
honest.
shocked EA Play is still on this. It adds almost. I shouldn't say it adds almost no value, but the problem is by the time the games hit there, everyone who wants those games has played them.
Remember back on the old Xbox show we were doing, like when EA Play was added, we were like, "Oh, this is a band-aid until they get their first party games rolling out."
I mean, they still technically we're still not wrong on that.
I mean, I know, but
that's the worst part about this. I would rather them be like, "Hey, we just want to make a deal to like bring the Star Wars games to our service when you're ready to put them on or something."
Yeah.
But like getting Madden and EAFC and stuff like that 7 or 8 months after launch, like just what does that do for anybody? It's like bringing NBA 2K and then bringing it only for a couple months just to have to delist it.
Mm-hmm.
It's wild. It's absolutely wild. I have so many takes on sports games. The other thing I want to list is asinine. If we're calling companies out for stuff, and again, we've got stuff to say on Xbox Casuals about this. $700 for a console that does not include the vertical stand or a disc drive.
I know.
For the PS5 Pro.
Yeah.
If you care that much about frame rate, about graphical fidelity, and about performance, go build a PC. I cannot stress this enough. Please go build a PC. Only like 25% of PlayStation 5 owners even have a TV capable of putting out at 120 frames.
Mm-hmm.
Like that was a statistic that was presented by Sony, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna be honest. When I watched the comparisons, I saw basically no difference.
I didn't see anything either.
I also thought it was very funny that 2 PlayStation 4 releases were being used as examples.
What, The Last of Us 2 and Spider-Man? Oh,
Spider-Man was used also, but I don't remember if it was Spider-Man 1 or 2.
Yeah, I couldn't really tell. They look the same.
They basically look the same. That was particularly really frustrating for me. That is just so tone deaf in this economy and in this era. It is, I was saying this in the Discord, it is an example of how far can we push our consumers. Mm-hmm. This is 100% them testing the waters for how they're going to price the PS6 and how Microsoft is going to price the next Xbox.
Yeah, I mean,
which we have expected that to be the price if you get a bundle console.
I mean,
if you get something that can be played at home and on the go with the specs of like the Series S in it, yeah, I would expect that, because to get an OLED Steam Deck with a decent amount of memory, that's about what you're paying after you add in a dock. You're paying around $600-$700.
Yeah, but then the LCD ones right now are $330 at the
exactly.
512.
That's the thing, is for a premium priced unit, and that's why like I don't like the $700. I think it's asinine, but nobody has a gun to your head to get this. They're not getting rid of the base console, which is 100% fine for 99% of us. I would wager to say everybody listening to this show, there's nothing wrong with a base PS5. You will see,
I mean,
very little difference.
Half of our audience still plays Destiny on PS4 and Xbox One, right? I mean, which I don't understand you people, but whatever.
Yeah, I think like the fact that it's also coming out that like games are still struggling to hit 60 frames even on that new PS5 Pro blows my mind.
Yeah. People don't
the
want
one game that I have seen that folks really, really like on that have gotten hands on with it. And the only reason I'm bringing this up, and I promise this is the last thing, then we're going to go. Digital Foundry has brought up that they have seen Final Fantasy VII Rebirth running on it, and it is a noticeable improvement over the base PS5.
Yeah.
Okay, that is also like that. Creative Business Unit 3 is one of the most talented studios in the entire world in terms of like especially graphical fidelity. I'm not using them as the baseline for how everything is going to look, but the fact that Digital Foundry, who had serious concerns, is now kind of like, yeah, it's there. Like it does look better, but this is still a super niche product. It is estimated to sell probably over the next 5 years, about 12, 13 million of these are going to be sold, which hilariously is the exact number that the Wii U sold in its entire lifetime of also 5 years.
Yeah. Well, that's also about the number of PS4 Pros that sold. Estimate was about 15.
We have hit a point where graphics just can't look too much better than they already are. Like ray tracing really is the next big frontier for graphics. And guess what? That's going to take a while. I do think that studios are going to start kind of adapting to the Nintendo way more than anything, of just like, hey, let's just make a good game regardless of like how cutting edge it looks.
Yeah.
Especially because like that's the advantage of the hardware owners, I think, is you're always going to be able to optimize your own hardware better than something else.
I mean, that's why Nintendo's games mostly run flawlessly on like essentially 20-year-old hardware, right?
Yeah, I mean, like Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom are still two incredible looking games and run very, very well. But things like Control look bad and run poorly.
Yeah.
Like, it's just, it is what it is. So,
look, you're talking to somebody who reviewed Wolfenstein 2 on the Switch when Pow Block was the only show I was doing.
That's true.
So, played through that puppy. It was fine. Not great. Not bad. Not great.
Yeah. But we've got more to take a look at on Xbox Casuals the next time we do that.
God.
Which, of course, all this hits. We had a whole bunch of news hit right after recording on Monday.
Yep.
And then this morning, also, in case you haven't seen, Microsoft did lay off another 650 employees. Mostly in like business and professional departments, but still, nonetheless, I did find it very, very, very bad that they had to actually explicitly say no social accounts say anything today, so they didn't have a repeat of the flame controller meme from the last time they did layoffs. And also that Annapurna apparently had its entire staff resign this evening. If you haven't seen that. So yeah, there's a lot going on. So, thoughts to nearly 700 people, again, without jobs. And that's in addition to the Rocksteady news we talked about on the show on Monday.
And that's in addition to the entire Annapurna Interactive team resigning.
That's what I just said. Yeah, Annapurna stepped away this evening.
Yeah.
25 staffers just walked away. The entire company walked away.
That's so crazy, man.
And that comes 2 weeks after signing that deal with Remedy. Which I've read that is still intact because that was through Annapurna Pictures more than anything.
Yeah.
So, yeah, fun times. But yeah, a lot of stuff we'll dig deeper on Xbox Casuals. Figured while we're hitting Game Pass news, we'll just drag everybody else down with us.
Jeez.
But I think that's gonna do it, Corey.
Yeah, I think we did it. I think we did a lot. So yeah. Man, Josh, this I have not been cured from the PAX hangover yet. Let me tell you. But hopefully I can say what I'm doing soon. So
hopefully.
Yeah. So anyways, I want to thank everybody for watching and or listening to this episode of Tower Casuals. You can check us out every Friday on your podcast service of choice for the time being, maybe every other Friday moving forward once all these things get fleshed out. Who knows? We'll see. Check out Xbox Casuals, our Xbox podcast. Josh, thank you for your time tonight, as always. Where can we find you?
You guys know. Josh_Finn, 2 N's.
2 N's.
2 N's.
You can find me at I am Corey HD on Twitter and Instagram. Check out Josh and I sat with Jeff Gardner on an episode of the Boss Rush podcast. It
was awesome.
We recently interviewed Nick Apostolides, the voice actor for Leon Kennedy in the Resident Evil games. I got to interview Yacht Club at PAX. You can check all that out too if you want. And Josh is going to be making some more appearances real soon if schedules are going to work out correctly. So
Indeed.
I want to thank everybody out there for watching and or listening. And until next time, we love you. Goodbye.